What? Who's there? Show yourself. Ah! No, not again. I already talked about you. Twice. I won't do it again. Listen, there's already been too many videos and too many theories on you. I don't need to add on to it. Alright, fine. But this is the last time. Hopefully. Now, as you might have guessed, I'm not very optimistic making this video. Because let's be honest, this is without a doubt the most heavily debated minigame in the entire franchise. There have been so many theories and speculations surrounding this damn minigame, ranging from confusing to straight up insane. And yet, with every theory, there's always that one problem that doesn't make sense or line up 100% well. So you might be wondering, if the minigame is basically unsolvable, why did I make this video? What groundbreaking discovery have I made that changes everything we know about this minigame, or some other clickbait like that? The short answer is, it isn't groundbreaking. However, it is somewhat a new idea I haven't seen basically anyone talk about. Basically what I did was, I didn't overcomplicate it. Midnight Motorist and FNAF 6 as a whole was made up to tie up some loose ends with the previous 5 games. Each of the Lore Keeper minigames are supposed to tie back with the previous games in a way. In the Security Puppet minigame, we learned more about how the puppet kid, Charlotte, ended up possessing the puppet animatronic. In Fruity Maze, we learned about one of the victims of the missing children's incident. These two minigames are one of the most straightforward, easy to understand pieces of FNAF lore that we ever got. Like, you can just turn your theory brain off and you'd still understand it. They are just that simple. So I thought, why not use that same line of thinking with Midnight Motorist? How about I just turn my theory brain off? I won't overcomplicate it, I won't look very deep into it, I'll just take everything we see in this minigame at face value. And surprisingly, when I replayed the minigame again with that mindset, personally, I think I've come up with a very satisfying and somewhat unique answer. Now, I've rambled enough. Let's actually start the video and once again, hopefully for the last time, find out what really happened later that night. Midnight Motorist recap in 30 seconds. Go. We buy arcade called Midnight Motorist. We play game, we find secret path, we are driving purple car, it's raining.
MOUND.
Juniors, green guy won't let us in. We go home, someone is watching TV, our kid locked his door. We find a way in from outside. He ran away to that place again. End. Okay, let's get the obvious stuff out of the way. Mustard Man is borderline confirmed to be William Afton, thanks to the fact that he's driving a purple car similar to Afton, and 5 Laps at Freddy's shows the same purple car from Midnight Motorist, called Midnight Motor, having a Spring Bonnie antenna, which is obviously the character William is associated with the most. I think the reason Scott made Afton yellow in this minigame is to probably debunk the theory that Afton was literally purple like Michael was, and probably connect him more with Spring Bonnie via color. Next up, time placement. The minigame in the files is called Later That Night, so couple that with the fact that Afton drove away from Charlotte's body in a rainy night as well, it's pretty obvious that the minigame is later that same night. Next up is Juniors. It's obviously a bar, and as we take a closer look at William's sprite, it's obvious that he's very drunk, and that's probably why he was kicked out of Juniors. I personally don't think this is any Fazbear location, I think it's purely just a bar that William frequented. Now we are getting to the good stuff. There have been many theories on what this mysterious pile of dirt contains, ranging from being a secret grave for one of the Afton family members to being a secret entrance to an underground testing facility. But what do I think? Again, I'm trying to take the simple approach here. I don't want to overcomplicate it. So, since we can't truly know what is buried there just by looking at this minigame alone, I thought I'd look at other things in FNAF 6 itself that might help us solve this. Since Midnight Motorist is connected to the Security Puppet minigame, which in turn helps us get the Lorekeeper certificate, how about we look at the other Lorekeeper minigame, Fruity Maze. Fruity Maze is a game that has us going through a large maze, and our task is to collect all the fruit that we can get. Every time the screen flashes, we see glimpses of the character of Susie playing the arcade. If we beat the minigame for the first time and play it again, the music is playing a little slower. We see that a lot of the fruits are replaced with dogs lying in a pool of blood. We even see Susie is a bit sadder than before. More interestingly, we start seeing a yellow rabbit coming out of the ground. If we once again beat the minigame and play it again, the music becomes more distorted and glitchy. All of the fruits are replaced with the same dog as before, now just a head and a tail lying in a pool of blood, as well as flowers and boxes. We now see that Susie is crying, likely because this dead dog was once her pet. Unfortunately, just behind her, we see William Afton wearing the Spring Bonnie suit. The yellow rabbits have now appeared all over the minigames and are staring at us with a large grin. Eventually, we hear a loud car horn playing as the minigame ends. Then we see Spring Bonnie tell Susie that her dead dog is actually alive, and he tells her to follow him. That is where the minigame ends. Now, I think, when looking at the context of FNAF 6, the mound in Midnight Motorist contains Susie's dead dog. Remember, this minigame is part of the Lorekeeper achievement. These three minigames are supposed to be connected to each other to get the last ending screen. We aren't supposed to look at these minigames in a vacuum. They are connected to each other. Since Midnight Motorist is obviously connected to the Security Puppet minigame, other than it taking place in the same night, Midnight Motorist shows us how William was able to kill Charlotte by introducing us to juniors and Afton being an alcoholic. And the Security Puppet minigame is connected to Fruity Maze by showing two of Afton's victims, and also showing why he committed the MCI in the first place, to replicate what happened to Charlotte. So logically, Midnight Motorist has to also connect to the story behind Fruity Maze in some way. I mean, haven't any of you wondered how William knew about the dead dog in the first place? You could just say he heard it from other customers, but that would still be an assumption. There is no concrete proof showing that to be the case. No, what if Midnight Motorist answered that by telling us that William knew about the dog, because he was the one who accidentally ran over it? I mean, if Afton knew about the dog, and we see him in full right after we hear several car horns, then there must be a connection there. I mean, think about it. In Midnight Motorist, we are introduced with Afton's alcoholism and his very reckless driving. The soundtrack is also called Smashing Windshields. Like, I think this is heavily hinting at the fact that Afton caused a car accident before. Couple that with the mound being very close to the same road that leads to Afton's house and Junior's, and the fact we see several yellow rabbits in Fruity Maze burrowing a hole in the dirt, paints a very clear picture to me that Afton accidentally hit the dog while drunk and buried it in the woods right next to the road. That would now show us how these minigames are connected to each other. But now let's discuss the issue a lot of people have with this theory. Some people think that this theory can't work because if Charlotte dies in 1983 and the MCI happens in 1985, then why is Susie still crying about her dog's death? I mean, let's be honest here. Losing a dog is very painful, and she's just a small child. I don't see how her crying over her dog's death only 2 years later is a problem. Like, personally, I don't really see an issue here, and with the context of the other Lorekeeper minigames, the mound being Susie's dog makes the most sense. If you're enjoying the video so far, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. For a very long time, I've been a believer that this couch person is not Michael. That mostly stems from my belief that the Runaway is Michael. If you guys watched my previous video about Midnight Motorist, you'd know I argued hard on how Michael must be the Runaway and him being the couch person had very weak evidence. But now, after trying to not overcomplicate this minigame, I've come to the conclusion that I was wrong. The couch person is 100% Michael. Like I mentioned, this minigame I think is supposed to be taken at face value like the others. Trying to overcomplicate a very simple conclusion is what led me to being wrong in my first ever Midnight Motorist video. In that video, I argued that Mustard Man being William similarly didn't have much strong evidence, and couldn't be true because Afton was always associated with purple, not yellow. I even tried to argue that the purple car was just a red herring made by Scott to trick us. But when 5 laps came out, I was dead wrong. The purple car did indeed belong to the same guy that also had a purple car. It was that simple. So to me, I think it makes the most sense to have the couch person, a character that cares for his family member, babysits them, watches TV, and wears gray in 1983, be the same person who cares for his family member, babysits them, watches TV, and wears gray in 1983. Now this also applies to the Runaway. If we have Afton as the driver, Michael as the couch person, then the only real candidate for the Runaway is the crying child. I know a lot of people have trouble imagining this crying kid breaking out of his home, especially for me. But that's the thing. The minigame is showing us a time before a crying child was traumatized by something he saw. We know from FNAF 4 that he once did love Fredbears and the characters, so I think this is what we are seeing here. Crying child breaking out of his home isn't something he did to intentionally disobey William. He lives a shitty life with a shitty family. Of course, at some point he would run away to somewhere that'll make him happy. Even Michael makes a mention of how crying child had a bad day, so perhaps that was the catalyst for him running away again. It would also connect to the fact that Afton was watching crying child using his plush in FNAF 4. He's probably making sure he won't run away again. Another thing that convinced me that crying child was the Runaway was Didophobia. Long story short, a kid named Rory was kidnapped by William and was used in the FNAF 4 experiments, where Afton would pump the rooms with gas that makes him think that he's in his home, and makes the nightmare animatronics that come out at night seem more real. We know at least that these experiments were made to replicate what happened to Crying Child. So how about we look at the kid who was the Crying Child adjacent of this experiment? Obviously, Rory is stuck in the FNAF 4 rooms, which bears a striking resemblance to the FNAF 4 home. Rory also has the same toys as Crying Child, and he's also scared of the animatronics. These are more surface level connections. What other connections are there? In the short story, it was said that Rory just turned 7 years old when he was put in the experiments, which connects to Crying Child in Curse of Dreadbear, where the birthday cake, presumably for Crying Child, has 7 candles, implying that Crying Child died on his 7th birthday. Rory also remembers having a dog, which connects to the FNAF 4 ambience where we can sometimes hear a dog barking. We also learn that Rory is basically an outcast with very little friends, like how Crying Child was also an outcast with his only real friends being his toys. It is also revealed that Rory's parents were not that great, with his father always working and his mother being controlling. We don't know much about Mrs. Afton, but we do know that William works all the time like Rory's dad. And lastly, and the most important connection of all, Rory, eventually fed up with his life, decides to run away from home. Just like how I think Crying Child also ran away from home. I don't usually like to use parallels for my theories, but I think this works because Rory's whole purpose is to be another Crying Child. So if William is going to choose a kid for the experiments, he'll probably choose someone who's had a similar life to his own son. I know I made it a little overcomplicated a bit here, but I just wanted to point out the connections. Now let's move on to the other section. Now we have arrived to the most important section, where we answer arguably the most polarizing part of Midnight Motorist. Who left the footprints outside the home? If Crying Child is the Runaway, this gives us very limited options on who the footprints belongs to. Like, the only possessed robot at this time is the puppet, but as you can see, the puppet has no feet. The most common answer you'll hear for who left the footprints outside is probably one of the shadow animatronics. Reason for that is because it is believed that either one of them spawned from Charlotte's death. But for me, I don't think this makes much sense, because simply put, that's not how agony works. An agony creature doesn't spawn that quickly from a random murder, much less taking a form of a character that literally has nothing to do with what happened. There's also no logical reason for a shadow to lure a crying child at all, much less to scare him and then leave before the events of FNAF 4 for some reason. There's also the fact that we don't know for certain if creatures like the shadows can leave footprints, because they are just paranormal creatures. Another thing I want to mention is that people think whoever left the footprints has to be a character that can teleport, because we don't see any other footprints from them. But I don't think that's the case. The footprints are placed just in front of some bushes, so of course you wouldn't see any other footprints behind the ones already there. So yeah, no, for me, it doesn't make any sense at all that any of the shadows left the footprints. Alright, so you've heard me yap about how it can be one of the shadows. So who do I think left the footprints? I do admit that even when trying to apply the simpler approach to this minigame, I struggled the most on finding out who left the footprints. There is no haunted robots yet, and I personally don't think the shadows make sense, so what other option is there? I then thought of an idea. What if the footprints were left by just a regular, non-possessed animatronic? Like, literally, what if the robot that left the footprints was not possessed at all, and had no malicious motive? But I'm sure you are wondering, if it was just a regular animatronic, then why did it follow Crying Child home, and took him to quote-unquote that place? Well, let's think about it. When have we ever seen a regular, non-haunted animatronic following someone outside the restaurant? Oh yeah, in the minigame that takes place in the same night. The puppet went out of the restaurant to try to bring back Charlotte to the pizzeria. So what if the same thing happened to the crying child in that very same night? What if crying child also had a bracelet similar to Charlotte? And maybe as a result of him having a bad day, he left the birthday party early and would accidentally take the bracelet with him home. Then later that night, the animatronic assigned to crying child would follow him all the way back home to take him back to the pizzeria. I mean, don't you find it odd that Scott chose to place this minigame in the same night as Charlotte's death? I mean, sure, it gives context on how William managed to kill Charlotte, but Scott could have just placed this minigame at any moment in time and still get the idea of an alcoholic William across. No, I think the reason the minigame was placed right after Security Puppet is because this is the same night of the birthday party that Charlotte attended, where every attendant would receive their bracelets. So if Crying Child visited Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, which is heavily implied in the logbook, and he attended the same party that Charlotte was at, then he would theoretically also wear a similar bracelet. Now, of course, with any theory, there's bound to be some problems, and I'll try to address them now. I think the first thing that comes to mind is that how can the animatronic survive the rain? Well, there's two explanations. It could have just rained later, since in the regular Security Puppet minigame we don't see rain outside, it only appears when Charlotte is outside. The second explanation I have is not all the robots are damaged by rain like the puppet was. Case in point, the alleyway rare screens we get in FNAF 6 depicts the animatronics outside in the rain, so water doesn't always damage the robots. Second problem you might think of is, how would the animatronics go outside in the first place when it's not programmed to? To answer that question, again, we see the puppet can just leave the restaurant without issue, so it's not far-fetched to say that any other animatronic can also leave. I also don't think their programming would hinder them by going outside, since we see in the week before that the classics can just go outside. While yes, they are possessed, that didn't stop the animatronic programming from stopping the souls to enter the safe room and follow me. Reason being, the robots were programmed not to. So if the possessed animatronics can still be hindered by their programming, then them being able to go outside shows that the regular robots are able to go outside. A third problem that arises is the fact that people would notice that one of the performers just upped and left the establishment. But again, we see the puppet go outside without anyone noticing. So that's the main problems I can find with this theory. Last point I want to bring up is the fact that the mysterious Chica's Secret Party quote-unquote game that was revealed in the Ultimate Guide 2.0 does give some credence to my idea. Chica's Secret Party takes place in the Midnight Motorist house, which you can clearly see in one of the screenshots. We are then later told that we can see an animatronic walking outside in the backyard, which is similar to what we see in Midnight Motorist, the animatronic in question being Bonnie. Now, the book doesn't specify which version of Bonnie specifically, but the fact he's only called Bonnie should mean that it's talking about classic Bonnie. So if classic Bonnie was the one who left the footprints in Midnight Motorist, then there's two possible explanations. Either the MCI takes place in 1983, which I find highly unlikely, or Bonnie followed Crying Child home because he was the animatronic assigned to him. I mean, it would make sense considering we only see 3 other bracelet colors when theoretically we should see 4, or the core 4. So what if Crying Child had that 4th bracelet? I mean, one of the items we can get in the Tickets to Fun kit is a red bracelet. I mean, yeah, this could mean absolutely nothing, but what if it could possibly show us that there was indeed a 5th bracelet present in Freddy's? This one being red. And we do see Bonnie sometimes being depicted with red eyes. But I'm just spitballing here. It could again just mean nothing. So yeah, it could be Bonnie, it could be Freddy, it could be Foxy, and maybe the rain damage could explain why he's always out of order, or maybe it's Fredbear himself. I'm not sure. The point is that a robot from Freddy's followed Crying Child home. So we've talked about what is happening in Midnight Motorist, but now let's ask why. Why did Scott make it? What is the ultimate purpose of this minigame? Like, yes, it gives us context to the other minigames, but the others tell a story of their own. So what story is Midnight Motorist telling? I think the fact that this game is heavily connected to FNAF 4, and we see that Crying Child is not yet scared of the pizzeria, I think what this game is trying to answer is what the Crying Child saw. It's trying to show us the night the kid saw something that would traumatize him and haunt him in the events of FNAF 4. For a game that is trying to tie up loose ends, what better loose end to tie up than seeing why Crying Child was scared of the pizzeria in the first place, which was never truly expanded upon in FNAF 4 and sister location. Like, for me, that's the most obvious takeaway from this. As for what Crying Child saw, considering that the minigame is taking place the same night as Charlotte's death, and Crying Child was being lured back to Freddy's, I think what Crying Child saw was Charlotte's dead body. And like that old clue said, he misinterpreted what he saw and is left traumatized. Yes, he did see a dead body, but he still misunderstood what he saw. The kid probably interpreted the scene as the puppet killing Charlotte, which makes him think that the animatronic that lured him, who he probably saw as his friend, also wanted to kill him. And so that would make him scared of the robots. He was just at the wrong place at the wrong time. I mean, it does fit with FNAF 4's dialogue. Don't you remember what you saw? He saw the puppet holding Charlotte's dead body. You know what will happen if he catches you. One of the animatronic literally followed him home to take him back to Freddy's. He thinks if any of the robots catches him, he'll die as well. But what do you think? Have I finally cracked this minigame, or have I gone insane? Wherever the case may be, comment down below. And if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, all that jazz, and I'll see you on the flip side.